The third phase, part B. Bernard Ignatius, that is Ben, was born in St. Stephen's Hospital, Delhi, on August 20th, 1944. He went to Presentation Convent School and after grade 1 moved on to St. Peter's College, Agra, boarding school. He finally graduated and matriculated and worked in the Indian Railways. Ben loved to play all kinds of games. His hobby was playing marbles, as he used to pride himself as owner of a good collection of marbles. He also collected birds' eggs and shot doves and pigeons with his homemade catapult. He even cooked them. He loved to bike around and made the most of the good time with friends at the boarding school. His favorite friends were Mike Kingham and Ted Trainer, Choo Choo and Deshi. He used to confide with me with girls that he liked that never materialized. Eventually, when he got older, he worked in the Gulf. Knowing his ill luck with girls, I spoke to Hubert and Carmen and introduced him to Fatima through mail, and he liked my choice and married her in the Gulf. He even came to Delhi and visited her uncle, Hubert and Carmen, and lived with me during his brief stay. They have 3 children: Bosco, who's married to Rose, and have 2 girls, and live in our ancestral home. Fabiola married John and have a boy and live in Dubai. Bernita got married to Larry Gomes and have a child, and they live in England. I helped Ben with his shop when he opened it at Agasaim by sending him packed tin foods and stationery from US for several months as a brotherly gesture. After September 11, 2001, I had to stop sending him packages due to restrictions. He was very grateful for my help. In his old age, he was bedridden. For news from my sisters in Goa, he could not talk nor understand what anyone said. I believe he had dementia. According to relatives living in Agasaim, I was informed that Ben was ill treated with yelling and beating by a young relative as he was too slow and weak to respond, especially when his wife was abroad on a trip with Fabiola's family. I had this Ben ill treatment confirmed with other relatives of mine too. Ben finally succumbed with his sickness and died. I made up a poem for him and mailed to all and offered Mass here in US for his soul. Within a month or two, his wife Fatima also died from an unsuccessful surgery process. On behalf of our family, my wife sent condolences to the family. We offered Mass and prayed for her soul to rest in peace. Mario Salas was born in Goa on March 10th, 1946, and went to Presentation Convent School, Delhi. From grade 1, he went to St. Peter's College and joined Brother Ben. He was known as the mischief maker and always got into trouble everywhere he went. He had a lot of friends too and loved to hang out with them rather than with the family. Once he played a trick on me and celebrated his son's christening without my knowledge on my own wedding day, and as he knew I would pay for my wedding and the entire reception, he invited all his friends for the christening, who had a good time at my expense. He thought I did not know this, but I remained silent about it and paid for everything. His wife knew this all too well. His hobby was to catch the young of a squirrel and tame them. He named them Pinky. When they grew older, they just took off back to the trees. In all, he had about 5 named Pinkies. When Dad retired, Salis too went with my parents and stayed at our ancestral home. He began work at Goa shipyard at Vasco and later got an opportunity to work in Singapore. From there, he went to Dubai to work. He married our cousin Lourdes, Mom's sister's only daughter. They married in Bombay and have two children. Sharon, who is married to Malcolm, live in Bombay. Of late, I have heard they are building an extension of the Ferrao Ancestral property in Goa. Mark is their son, who is married and lives with his wife in England as they work there. Salis died under very suspicious circumstances at a young age. His body was found hanging by a rope in Dubai. Although I heard several versions from different family members, only Lourdes, his wife, knows the true story as to how and why he died at a young age. I lived in Delhi at that time, hence knew nothing of what had happened, and went to Agasaim for the funeral. I proclaimed the eulogy at Mario's grave site. Being the first sibling to die, parents were shocked and Mum was torn, crying a lot for a good while as she loved him the most of all the children. She used to call him Son Boy. This death will not be forgotten by many who knew him, both friends and relatives. Dominic Rosarius de Remedes Ferrao, that is Dom, was born in St. Stephen's Hospital, T. Cesare, Delhi on September 6, 1948. Tis in Hindi means 30, Hazar means thousand. The town is historical and is significant as 30,000 people died in the War of Independence in that area. Later, more about this. Marcella, baby, was born last on September 16, 1950, at St. Stephen's Hospital, Delhi. She went to Presentation Convent School. She was Dad's favorite, being the youngest. She loved to play with our Delhi neighbors, especially the sick girl, who was also named Baby. I do not know much of her hobbies except that she liked my choice of songs at the time. Baby too went to Goa with parents to settle down. She continued her schooling at Presentation Convent in Goa. I visited her at one point where I went to Goa on vacation. She introduced me to several of her friends. She completed her bachelor's degree at Dempe College in Panjim. She stayed with me and Cleo in Delhi as she could not find a good job in Goa. That Delhi trip brought her good luck as she received a call and went back to Goa to accept an offer on a government post in finance. She liked a friend of Salis named Tony Nogar. Parents made arrangements and got her married to him. I helped finance the wedding and sent money order to my father per his request. It was quite a lot of money at that time. According to my father, my brothers could not help monetarily as they were poor at saving money. As I was in Delhi, I could not attend the wedding. Marcella and Tony had two daughters, Jennifer and Manika, who, when young, were taken care of by my mother-in-law, who was known to them as Aunt Vienna. Later in life, Manika married Selvan, and they have two boys. Jennifer married Anil. They have two girls. Tony became too sick and eventually died of illness. His widowed mother died earlier, and most recently, his brother Daniel died too. Baby now owns her Rebunda house, I believe. Father Cyprian also allotted her a gift of his share of property in our ancestral home in Agasaim, which she has built, rebuilt, and equipped with all household furniture and appliances. At one point, according to Bosco himself, as verified by his email, he broke into her property while she was in Rebundar, as he and his mother claimed that baby had taken extra inches of ancestral property that was gifted to her. Baby was hysterical and called me one night while I was asleep with my wife in the early AM with a complaint in USA. Later in the morning, I called Fatima and Ben, and I was told that they preferred to go by the law and act accordingly. I told them if what they did was true, it is better to settle mutually rather than resort to careless action. That is the last time I spoke to them, as they did not wish to respond to my several calls from the US. They used to hang up the phone on me each time. All I wanted was a peaceful resolution. I just gave up calling them, as it was their method of doing things. It has remained that way since. I wanted to help baby back then, as she was a widow. At that moment, I sent her money as consolation. Taking sides with my widowed sister has backfired on me, as they were all against me and turned to be my foes. Recently, Bosco complained in an email to Melissa that Marcella is responsible for work being stopped with his renovation process at his alleged portion of the house in Agasaim due to the court case. I would not like to intervene anymore. Baby currently prefers to live in the Rebundar home. She has court cases against Bosco, Lourdes, and Sharon that I have last heard. I know nothing about these cases presently. My parents also adopted an adult, Olive, who has two brothers, Paul and Isaac, in the 60s, as she was orphaned. Finally, Dad had arranged for Olive to marry Raphael Anthony, who worked in St. Vincent de Paul in Delhi at the time. The two have 3 children. Ever since I last called Olive, Raphael, her husband, died. I frequently call Olive to check on them. They still live in Delhi. End of phase 3, and thank you.